Hello, hello. Welcome. It's February 3rd. Can't believe it. I mean, I used to say what happened to December or what happened to 2024, but now I'm saying what happened to January 2025. I have no idea what happened, but today we are here, February the 3rd, 2025. A lot of things going on in politics, a lot of things going on in business, a lot of things going on with the fire in Los Angeles, which is behind us. Rain came in, kind of helped out. So we have an exciting program today, something very important to all the homeowners and all the homeowners who have a loan, or all the homeowners who had a loan and refinance and now started another 30-year clock or a 20-year clock. So today we have some interesting topics and we are going to discuss some things, and I have a guest with me, so I'm going to bring him on. He is a second-time guest. I'm going to bring him to stage. With us is David Matney. He's from Omaha, Nebraska. He's a second-time guest. He's very knowledgeable, very experienced, very numbers guy, a tech guy, tech realtor. So, David, we have an exciting topic, which is how to pay off your mortgage early, how to save thousands and thousands.
Awesome.
And the key thing, the reason I'm very excited about this topic is you can pay extra if you want to, but even if you don't pay extra, a dime extra, well, I won't say, maybe a little bit extra, you can save 40,000, 50,000, 100,000 over the life of your loan.
Exactly.
But one thing I want to get started with, and David, I want you to introduce yourself, but let me start with this whole thing. When a typical homeowner buys a house, let's say it's $500,000, do you realize that by the time you pay off your loan, that house is going to cost you $1 million?
Yeah, that's
Did you know
amazing.
that?
Yeah, no, that's
People don't know that.
incredible.
Oh, I bought a 500,000. No. You bought $1 million house. Of course, this varies on your interest rate and your thing. But on average, I would say, on average, if you buy a $400,000 house today, that which is a national median home price of a house in USA today, about $420, it's going to cost you about $840 by the time you pay it off.
Wow.
Depending on your interest rate. At 7%, it's probably going to cost you more.
Yep.
Our job here today is to help you reduce, instead of paying 500 plus 500, how about you pay 500 plus 400 or 500 plus 300 and cut your cost by not stealing you or robbing of you any extra income.
Exactly.
We're going to discuss 4 or 5 things today, but David, introduce yourself before we get started.
Well, Mike, thanks for having me on the program today. My name is David Matney, and I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. And I've been selling real estate for over 20 years and started my YouTube journey about 4 years ago and been enjoying it and having a lot of fun doing it. So thanks for having me on the program.
Right. Thank you for coming. What before we get started on how to save, because I'm sure people who are watching live and people who will watch, by the way, my channel, a lot of people watch this after. So I have more people watching this after the live because I'm sure people work, they have kids. People work. It's an odd time. It's 4:30 in California.
Right.
Nebraska, what is it? 6:30 right now.
Yep, 6:30.
6:30, and in Philadelphia it's 7:30. So I understand the timing is not right. So I have more viewings after as a recording. So if you're watching, make some comments if you have any questions about how to save, because we have some exciting ideas to give you. And if you're watching this as a recording, if you have any questions or comments, put them there. I promise to answer back to you personally. So before we get started, any comments about how to save on mortgage and kind of advice and things like that?
No, I think it's a great topic. I think that anytime you can save money, and in the world we're living in right now, that every penny counts, and it's one step closer to financial freedom. So I think that's a key thing.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Okay. I'm trying to connect on my phone on this channel, so I'm having a hard time. Let me figure that out. So
sure.
I thought I was tech savvy. What happened? Anyway, let's get started. And I want to get started with showing you a chart. Let me bring the chart on live. Present, share screen. And there you go. All right. So let's look at this. This is a live channel. It's from Bankrate. And if you want to, what I want to show you is if you buy a house with a loan amount of 500,000. So let's say you bought a 550 house, but the loan amount is 500,000. Okay. So this just shows you that, if I calculate it, it shows you that what I want to show you is your total payments if you keep this house for 30 years at 7%, and I'm assuming it's 7%, 30 years, and this is the loan amount. So if you bought a house at 550, the total payments you will make, interest and principal, is going to be 1,196,000.
Wow.
Even though the house, assuming the house cost you 550, this just cost
Yep.
you in interest and principal and interest.
Right.
So the total interest you will pay on this house is almost $700,000. And a lot of the buyers don't realize this. That, hey,
Right.
I'm so excited. And I'm glad you're excited. Hey, I bought a house, $500,000 or $1 million. But when I talk to them about, hey, have you thought about cutting back on your payments? How do you do it? And I tell them, this $1 million house that you bought in Anaheim Hills, our medium home price,
Right.
it's going to cost you $2 million. Hey, what you talking about?
Right.
And I educate them, talk to them, and show them this chart. Hey, go to bankrate.com or Google, pay off early calculator and do your calculations. So I wanted to show you to see what happens is if you buy a house, your monthly payment is $33.26, right? A $500,000 house, 7% fixed interest rate,
Right.
at 30 years will cost you $1 million in loan. Let me do something, and while we're waiting for more people to come in, I want to do something else. I'm going to go in there and change the interest rate to 6%. Watch. Our total payments is 1.19. Let's say 1.2. If I change it to 6%, calculate. See, just dropped to 1.07. It knocked out almost $190,000.
Right. Wow.
The payment went from $3,300. If you can see, I don't know if you can see my
Yeah,
arrow.
I can see that. Yep.
Right. So I just want to show you that, yes, interest is very important. So I won't say, hey, if it's 7%, wait for 6% or 5%. Buy when you're ready to buy.
Yep.
If you can buy right now, you have a job, your wife has a job, or your husband has a job, you're able to buy, you have the down payment, you have good credit, buy it. Don't worry about this. But
Right.
this is for somebody who's already bought.
Yep.
Right? Now you bought it. Now, how can I save? And that's what this show is all about. It's not about when you should buy, because first of all, my big advice or nugget is that don't chase the market. Buy when you are ready, willing, able to buy. You have credit right now. You have down payment right now. You can qualify. You want to move because you want to get too close to the hospital or close to the school, close to your mom and dad or whatever, right? Buy now. So this is what this is all about. So let's get started. David, what's one thing you can do, you as a homeowner, I know you're a homeowner as well, what can we do to save on interest? And let's start there.
Yeah, pay towards principal. And I think the other thing that folks need to realize is that the interest is front loaded. So early in the loan, you're paying way more in interest and very little applies to principal. So as you get toward the end of the loan, then more of it goes to principal.
Right.
But those early first couple of payments, you might have a year's worth of payments, but when you calculate that out, look at that amortization schedule, very little goes to actual principal. So if you can knock out any additional principal early, that's going to save you years on the back end. It's pretty incredible on how you can do it. Even just like just rounding up your payment.
Right.
Let's say your payment is 33. If you can afford to, bump it up to 34 or 35, just a little bit more.
Right.
It's kind of like a savings account at 7% interest.
Right.
Because you're saving that instead of paying it.
Right.
So I think that's important for folks and a lot of folks don't understand it or don't even realize it. They're just thinking, well, I'm making my payment, and they don't look at how much they're actually paying in interest.
And it's mind-boggling, right? I mean,
it is.
You buy a $500,000 house, you can barely afford it, or you're struggling, or not struggling, but in a nice way. You're working hard, you're keeping up your credit, you're buying groceries for your family, you're giving them, popcorns in the weekends, working so hard to keep your family happy, to keep shelter, house. And then we realized that, you know what, this house is going to cost me $1 million. I thought it's going to cost me $500,000.
Right.
Think about that. And you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. If your mortgage payment is $3,000 a month in the beginning, out of
Mhm.
that, I would say what, 2,700 is just interest the first few years. What do you think? Maybe 20.
Yeah, it's a very minuscule amount that is actually applied to principal.
Right.
And that's why a person needs to be in a home for 4 to 5 years before they sell, because they'll be underwater if they bought a home and then try to sell it right away. So they
Right.
got to be in a home.
Right.
Like you say, you got to be financially ready, and you got to be, um, decide that, hey, I'm going to be here for at least 5 years or so.
5 years. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So yeah,
And this works, the higher the interest rate, the more this applies to you. So if I have a 2%, I have 3% right now. I've had 3%
right.
interest rate since 2016.
Mhm.
And now, you know what's happening now? I am paying more principal.
Yeah.
Like it's reverse. I'm paying, like if I had a mortgage of 3,000 and I bought a house, I
Mhm.
would be paying 2,700 in interest. But
Right.
right now, because I'm towards the end of my loan, I'm paying 2,700 in principal and only $300
Yep.
in interest. So I
Right.
thought about paying off my house. My kids go, Dad, why don't you sell it off? So why should I pay it off if I got 3%?
Yeah, that's
If I put that money buy stocks, which I did, I'm making
right.
10, 12, 15%.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's exactly what I did. I didn't pay
right.
it off, and I have a payoff, and that the stocks did well, and I can use it and pay it off.
That money's working for you.
Money is working
Yeah.
for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to present a chart, and let's look at this. If you can see it, this is assuming there's a loan amount of 500. So let's say you bought a house for 550, you put 10% down. So forget that 50,000, right?
Right.
Now, and we're going to assume that you're going to take a fixed rate of 7%
Mhm.
at 30 years, right? And we discussed this earlier. That house, if you look at here, this house for 550, you're going to pay total payments, principal, interest over 30 years
Mhm.
of 1.197. That's what's going to cost you.
Right.
Right now, the question is, if you make an extra pay, how do you save on mortgage interest? How do you make that $1.2 million house to an $800,000 or a $900,000, which is a saving of $300,000 to $400,000 over the
Right.
life of the loan, assuming you keep it that long? Most people
Right.
don't keep it, but let's say after 10 years you bought a bigger house and you kept this as a rental. So it does apply to a lot of people, because a lot of people, at least the buyers that I know, when I sell them a house after 5 years, hey, Mike, I want to move to a bigger house or a small house. I tell them, keep that house, and they keep it. Right?
Yep.
So now let's go to another chart. Let me see here. Let's go to this chart. Actually, not that chart. Hold on. This one here.
Okay.
So now let's talk about something very small. Let's assume that you're making $3,000 a month payment. Well, in this case, you're making $2,684 a month payment, right? On a $500,000 house. And this is at 5%, by the way. I just changed it. And in fact, let me go to a slide that shows 7%. Let me see. Yeah, let's look at this slide. Can you see the slide?
Yep,
It's
I can see that,
7%, right? So if I go back to, I'm sorry, let's go back here. So let's say it's 5%. You bought this house in 2022, let's say, and you paid 5% interest rate, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that's what was my example. So let's say you have 25 years. See over here, instead of 30 years. So let's say somebody talked to you after 5 years, say, Mike, you talk to Mike or David, and you realize, you know what, I should make extra payments.
Yeah.
So after 5 years, now that you realize, man, I'm going to pay $1 million for that house that I bought. Yep. How can I save? How can I knock out 9 years?
Wow.
How you do that? A simple thing. You know what you can do?
Hmm.
Pay extra $200 a month. That's
Yep.
all we're asking. $200 a month. That's $2,400 a year. Maybe cut back on that vacation instead of that cruise that you are going to, 10-day cruise, make it a 7-day cruise.
Right.
There's your $200 a month right there. Or you go to dinner every weekend on Fridays and go to this fancy place. Maybe you want to go to, like Dave Ramsey says, maybe you want to eat every Friday beans. Or you go to Starbucks like I do, and every day it's like $6. You can save what, $180 right there. So if you save $200 a month, not say, but if you pay extra $200 a month, like clockwork every month, right? Just $200 a month. Look at this. Previously, you were paying at 7%. Of course, it's a different interest rate, but you knock off from 30 years, you paid off in 21 years. This is
Yeah.
after you start at 25. That means you started 5 years after.
Right. Wow.
If you
Yeah.
were started paying this the day you got your house, you could have knocked it down to 18 or 17 years instead of 30
Nice.
years.
Yeah.
This is how powerful this is. If you can see the numbers, it's a very powerful number. In fact, let me go back and change that number to 7%, okay, just to give
Yep.
you an idea. I'm going to change it to
Well, I
7.
think another point, Mike, would be this, and that would be when you're buying a home, make sure that you're buying a home that you can afford. That way there's a little bit, you got plenty of room to make an additional principal payment or make
Right.
an additional $200 a month. You're not
Exactly.
so you're not squeezed so tight that you have no room, wiggle room
Right.
to put a little extra toward it. So I think
Right.
it's,
Right.
um,
But one of the things I learned when I bought a house, or two things I learned, and now I tell you as a joke. When you bought a house, guess what, David? If you're my client, say, guess what? Who's your best friend is now?
who's your best friend?
Home Depot. Because you're gonna go there to fix stuff.
Right.
Second thing I say, what is the second thing I say? Is you have to become something that you never become when you become a homeowner. You know what that is?
Probably your parents or your dad.
No, you become frugal.
That's true. Yes.
Two things, and I joke with my guy, and I'm really not joking, but I say it in a joke. Your
Right.
best friend is going to be Home Depot or Lowe's because you're going to have to fix things. You're going to have a washer break, a dishwasher break. Something's going to
Right.
happen. And then
Yep.
number two, you're going to have to become frugal. What are you talking about? Well, if you want to pay off early, so let's
Right.
look at that. Let's say you become frugal. Stop
Right.
shopping. Stop. I'm not saying cut back everything, but
Right.
cut a little bit here and there so you
Sure.
can afford to pay just $200 extra a month.
Yep.
So here's this example: $500,000 house,
hmm
and you pay $200 a month every month, like clockwork.
Right.
And instead of 30 years, remember in the example I showed you, we were at almost 1.2 total.
Right.
Look at this. You can see it on the screen, right? It's 966.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
And look at how many years you pay. Remember, my title is
Right.
pay off 9 years early.
Right.
If you pay just $200 a month or more in principal, and of course, tell your bank that it goes towards principal, and make
Yep.
sure with your bank that they allow this, because
Right.
all banks allow it. Talk to your professional. We just give you an example,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
You knock out 9 years from
Right.
your loan. Amazing.
Well, and then here's another technique, and maybe you're going to talk about this, and that is, let's say you do have a 7% interest rate, and let's say rates went, you never know what rates are going to do, but if they were to go down and you were to refinance,
Okay.
you refinance, but then still pay that original payment and then apply that extra to principal.
Okay, well, let's do that. So let's say we refinance now, and let's say the
Yep.
rate is what? 6%?
Sure. Yep.
6%. And remaining loan, let's say we refinance and we had 23 years. You bought the house 7 years ago.
Right.
And you refinanced last year at 7%, but now it dropped to 6%. So you now refinance. So now you have 30-year loan again, right? Because when you refinance,
Right.
your term becomes 30 years. And you pay $200.
Sure.
Right? Then what happens is you still knock out 5 years.
Right.
And you still knock out about $100,000 from your original loan. Because remember, when you refinance, you start your clock from today. So if I refinance today, I start, right?
Or refinance, if you can do this, if you can refinance to a 20-year loan.
Yeah, or let's go 15 years, and let's say you
Yeah.
get 5.5 instead of 6, and you're getting 15-year loan.
Right.
Well, we have to look at two things, okay? One is that your payment goes up to 28.38. Hopefully you can afford it.
Right.
Right? Oh, wait a minute. The original loan term is 15 years, right? Okay. So calculate that. So your payment goes to 4,000. So if you can jump from 3,000 to 4,000,
Right.
but what happens is, you're knocking your loan down to 5.5% instead of 7%,
Right.
but you knocked out 15 years already. And this is also assuming you're paying $200 extra. So if I take that out, let's take out the $200, you're not paying anything extra.
Right.
I'm just going to put 1 because it requires to put something. So you knock down your payment to 4,000. So your payment goes from 3 to 4, but you knocked out 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
15 years from your
Wow.
mortgage,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Or like you said, let's go to 20 years, right? Let's go take a 20-year loan. Then what happens? Let's see what happens. 1, 20 years. Remaining term cannot be larger than the loan term. Okay. Oh, this is 30 years. And now the remaining term is 15 years. Okay. There you go. Okay, hold on. Let me see here. Remaining term, original loan term is 15 because we are changing it to 15 years and we're starting. So that's what it is, right?
Okay.
So it is 4,000. This is without paying the $200. So if you refinance, you don't need to pay the extra, right? So
You
let's
need
see.
to the screen is you sharing the right screen on there?
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
I think so. Let me see. Mortgage, present, share screen, mortgage payoff. Okay. Now what are you seeing?
Okay, there's the original term. Okay, there we go.
Right.
Remaining term. Okay, there we go.
Right,
Yep.
but I'm going to put it 20 years because you say instead of 15, if it, let's say, so you know what, 4,000 is stretching it. So let's go to 20 years like you suggested, and then see how much difference it makes. Let's see, 20 years. So at 20 years, can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Your payment is more reasonable.
Right.
It's at $3,400. This is not paying any extra. This is so going from a 7% 30-year fixed payments about what it was about 2,800 or something. When you go to 20 years, it jumps to $400, $500 a month more, but you're
Right.
knocking out 10 years of your loan.
Yeah, that's
That's
amazing.
huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
Right. And I know it's tough to do. I know people are struggling, but here's the thing. When I bought my house, I'll take my story,
Mm-hmm.
I just started real estate and just bought this house. I was
Right.
crazy. Didn't know anything about real estate. Didn't know anybody in real estate. And I said, you know what?
Right.
I'm going to buy this house because my dream was to move to Anaheim Hills. This house
Right.
came on the market at $242. It was the cheapest house when I
Wow.
bought it. It was a
Wow.
fixer house, and I bought the house, and I just started real estate.
Right.
I worked like 16, 17 hours a day, like a mad dog.
Right.
So going back to being frugal and your best being Home Depot, let's talk seriously.
Yep.
If you really want to pay off your mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
can you afford to pay $200 a month extra? Sure, you can.
Right.
Number one, you can
Right.
cut back on things. Or
Yep.
number two, do a side hustle.
Yep.
Do a tutoring course, sell something on eBay, do a Instacart or Uber,
Right.
200
Right.
bucks. So I want to revisit that slide, David. I'm going to put that
Okay.
slide back just so
Yep.
that I'm going to put that slide back, add to
Okay.
state.
Yep.
Okay. Not that slide. I'm going to put this slide. Let's see. Which slide was it? Yeah, well, let's put this slide. Okay. Again, 500,000 paying $200 extra, you will knock out 9 years.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Now let's look at a different angle to this. Let's say you don't want to pay 200 a month extra, but let's say every year you get a tax break because you're so good at taxes, you and your family, your wife, you do this magic on your taxes, you have a good accountant. And let's say you save 5,000 a year in taxes or whatever, right? So I'm going to bring that slide. Let me find that slide. Okay. So this example, what it shows is if from the first year you have a $500,000 loan, it's a 30-year loan at 7% interest rate. If you pay December 31st or December 30th, $5,500 a month every year, not a month, I'm sorry, a year.
Right.
Once a year because you got a bonus because you work hard or your grandma left you a thing where you get 5,000 a year or your parents, you got lucky or you worked extra. You did Uber the whole year and you saved 5,500 or you worked at McDonald's. Even though you're white hair, you can work in McDonald's or In-N-Out Burger. You save if you pay 5,500 per year, every year, right? You will, let's see, look at the total interest you will pay at 500. You knock out 9 years. See this over here chart?
Right. That's
Let
amazing.
me read that. Let me enlarge it. I'm reading at the top. See what it says, pay off in 21 years?
Yeah.
So if you pay if your loan is 500,000, your loan term is 30 years, 7% interest rate. You pay once a year a $5,500 lump sum if your bank allows it. I'm going to read this out. By paying extra $5,500 annually at the year end starting now, the loan will be paid off in 21 years and 4 months, not 30 years. It is 8 years and 8 months earlier. 8 years.
Right.
Imagine you don't have to pay for 8 years your $3,400 a month.
Yeah.
And look at this. This results in a savings of $231,000, which $250,000. Let me say it in $1 million. You save $250,000 by
That's
doing
amazing.
this.
Yeah. Imagine if you could do both, where you could still do the $200 a month, and then when you got your taxes, you got that $5,500. Then you throw that on there on the principal. That would just imagine that what
and we're not trying to tell the viewers do what you can do. Let's say you can pay 15. You know what, Mike? I work hard. I work 12 hours. My wife works, or husband works, or we already up to here. We got kids. We got parents. We can work.
Right.
So let's say few months, few years, you get a bonus, 5,000 here, 5,000 there. Do a lump sum payment.
Yep.
Pay 500 a month if you can. 1 month.
Right.
300 another month. 5,000. Anytime you pay extra principal, you save interest over the life of the loan. That means that let's say you pay $5,000. That means you're not going to pay interest on that 5,000 for 30 years. That 5,000 becomes 10,000.
Right.
And your job is, by paying that, you're cutting off that extra. So if you pay 5,000, you just save 5,000 in interest, technically speaking, kind of like,
Exactly. I did this with rental property. I had several rental properties, and I would just have the tenants, the extra that I made in profit, I would apply toward principal. And then when I got to the point where I paid one of them off, then I applied that rent toward principal on the next one. So I was really, chunking it down, that and I paid off 10 properties that way, and it worked out really well for me.
Wow. Okay.
Because that way, but I just viewed it as that money was never going into my pocket. It was always going back into just kind of like a forced savings account, and it really added up. And then once you get going with it, it's kind of fun to see it get knocked down so quickly. So it worked out well. And because now there's an argument to say that if you have really low interest rate, it might be better putting it in the stock market and earning, like in your case where you have a 3% interest rate, you might be able to get 10% or 12% on the stock market. So, but I just looked at it as, well, this money's coming in, I'm going to apply it toward principal, and then there's just that less stress. Because there's a lot of stress with a mortgage and all that sort of thing. And if you could alleviate that stress, then I've alleviated it even more. I sold the property. So now I have no stress. But I think this is fun. I think it's an amazing to have these calculators like this available. I think it's neat to see, and I think it's important for folks to realize just how much they can save and how much they can. Because sometimes when you first start your mortgage, you're like, oh geez, it's going to take forever. But just a little bit. And
and then David, I want to continue with something which I think is the most interesting part of our conversation, is our next topic or next few conversations. And you know what? What if I tell you, or there's a system where you can save 7 to 10 years, depending on your interest rates and mortgage payments and all that, without making any extra payments. Like, we don't want you to pay 200 extra. We don't want you to pay the 5,000. Mike, I don't have zero money. How do I do it? Well, there's a system to it. And here's a chart. If you can look at it, I'm sure you can see it. It's called making a bi-weekly payment. So let me explain how that works. And David, you already know that, but let's say your mortgage payment is $3,000 that we talked about. So, and let's say you pay 15th of the month. I pay my mortgage on the 10th, but let's say you pay 15th of the month, right? So instead of doing that, you take your $3,000, split it in two, which is $1,500. So pay $1,500 on the first, and $1,500 on the, let's say, the 16th every month. Right. You're not increasing your payment. You're not paying anything extra. So instead of paying on the 15th of every month, you're $3,000, and that's an assumption. Pay on the 1st, pay on the 16th. Just by doing that,
right,
you will save, in this example, $500,000, 7%, 30-year fixed loan. You will save almost 8 years, 6 to 7 years by doing that.
Wow. Just that alone. That's amazing.
Look at the numbers. Your payment is $1,197. With the payoff is $1,029.774, and you're not really paying off anything.
Right.
All you're doing is making bi-weekly payments.
Yep.
Now, I did a TikTok video on this, and I did a YouTube video on this. I got a lot of questions. How does that work? This doesn't work.
Right.
There's a catch to it. Yeah, there's a catch to it. The catch to it is, if you make payments on the 15th, you make 12 payments, right?
Right.
12 times every 15th, you make 12 payments. But by paying bi-weekly, you end up paying 13 payments. Right. You don't even feel it because you're paying 15 and 15, which is 3,000.
Right.
You don't feel it because there's 52 weeks.
Right.
Math knows it. The math calculates 13 payments, and that's how you save almost $100,000. See, let's look at this. The remaining balance is $500,000 by paying $1,663 bi-weekly. In this example, remember the payment is $3,300. Bi-weekly starting now. The loan will be paid off in 23 years and 11 months. It is 6 years and 1 month earlier.
Wow.
This results in a saving of $167,000 by cutting your check in two and paying it.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then you don't feel it because it's, it's just...
You're not technically, yes, you are paying more, but you don't feel it.
Right.
You don't have to cut. You don't have to become frugal. Keep your Starbucks if I annoyed you. Go to dinner if I annoyed you. Keep doing it. Don't pay $500 that your grandpa gave you or grandma gave you, or you want to do all. Just to buy weekly, and you will save $167,000.
Yeah, I think.
Let's look at another example. I'm going to change the numbers, because let's say your payment is 5.5%.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Let me go back and remove this, and I'm going to share the screen again, because I want to see a live example, because I want to understand.
Okay.
Let's see. Stop sharing. And I'm going to share again. Share screen.
Okay.
This is the slide I wanted, and I'm going to go back and change it. So can you see the screen now?
Yeah, I can see it.
Now what I'm going to do is, let's say you bought a house for $500,000 and the loan was 30-year loan.
Okay.
And let's say you bought the house about 3 years ago and you paid 5.5%.
Okay.
Right. Now your remaining loan term is 27.
Yeah.
Right. Because you already paid 3 years.
Right.
Right. So now I'm just showing that if you bought your house 3 years ago, what I'm trying to show you is you can start this anytime. It doesn't have to be from the get-go. You can start it 3 months, 3 years later, 2 years later. But let's assume you bought your house 3 years ago and you talked to Mike and Dave, and now I'm going to start it. Your rate is 5.5. Your remaining term is 27, and you make bi-weekly payments, no extra payments.
Okay.
How much will you save? Well, let's look at it.
Wow.
Pay off in 22 years and 10 months. You had 27 years. That means you just save 5 years of payments.
Yeah.
By paying $1,419 bi-weekly starting now, the loan will be paid off in 22 years and 10 months instead of your 27 years remaining.
Right.
Right. It is 4 years and 2 months earlier. This results a saving of $78,000 by just paying bi-weekly.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. The math does its numbers. And I think people don't realize that even if you pay $50 a month, every month, like clockwork, or $100, you'll knock out 3, 4, 5 years worth of payments. That's $100,000 easy.
Right.
And these numbers are so small, but imagine you're the bank.
Right.
How much is the bank making money on you? Right. When they give you a loan of $500,000, they're laughing at you. You idiot, you sucker. I'm going to make $500,000 from your house. And they do.
Yeah.
Imagine how many loans Bank of America has, Chase has, Union Bank has, Loan Depot has. And every time they give a loan, guess what they're smiling about? Sucker. I'm not telling you're a sucker, but they think
no, absolutely. I mean, it just shows the value of compounding. Like if you're young, if you invest early, how that adds up years later.
That's what this topic is about. It's not about making money, saving money. Yes, it is. How do the rich get richer? It's strategy.
Right.
If you're working 40 hours a week, and you're blessed that you're working, and you may say, you know what, I'm going to work 50 hours a week. Good, go for it. You ain't going to get rich.
Right.
Some of it's going to go in taxes. The way to get rich is to be smart. Work
Right.
the numbers towards you. The
Right.
people who buy rentals, you know why they buy rentals? It's called because of appreciation and depreciation and tax deduction.
Yep.
That's why they buy.
Right.
If you cannot buy rental, and if you cannot do depreciation and appreciation, depreciation, at least work the numbers on your side.
Yep.
Pay weekly or pay bi-weekly or pay a
Right.
principal. You
Yeah.
will make money. You'll retire earlier. You'll save 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah. And that's when that house is paid off. That's, you know,
Right.
imagine not having, you're paying in this case, 1,400 biweekly, but imagine when that's paid off,
Mm-hmm.
you still make that payment, but now you make it toward yourself and apply it to your IRAs or your investment accounts. And then
Right.
that money starts compounding that way. So instead of paying the bank making interest,
Right.
you're making money off that
Right.
interest, off that payment.
Right.
Still
And
have
there's
the
another
payment,
side
just
to it.
make it to yourself.
Exactly. And there's another side to it. Some of you that may be watching or will you watch the recording say, you know what, why should I pay $200 extra? What if I put the $200 in an IRA account or buy stocks? Or you absolutely.
Sure.
So we are just giving a strategy. Stocks
Right.
are good. I invest in stocks. I have IRA accounts. I have stock accounts, and I do put them in both.
Mm-hmm.
What's best for you? Talk to your professional. We're not professional. We cannot tell you what's
Exactly.
best for you. They're both good. They're both
Right.
good. But what's even better for you, that's between you and your accountant or your professional financial
Right.
planner. Talk to them. But we're giving you ideas and more choices.
Right.
Maybe if you can do both, you do both.
Well, I don't know about you, Mike, but life creeps up on you pretty quick. At a blink of an eye, I'm 55,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well, you're young, man. You are
it
young.
goes by quick. It
Yeah.
goes by quick,
Yeah.
and it's nice to have some money put away. That way,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
there's but 20 years goes by so quick. 30 years
Mm-hmm.
goes by quick, and next thing you know it, you're 55, and you're like, you got to put that money away, and
Yeah.
watch, be careful about going out there and buying toys and buying them on credit, because when you buy that boat, maybe you paid 20 grand for that boat, but you
Mm-hmm.
didn't pay 20 grand for that boat, because the same thing applies.
Right.
You're
Right.
paying interest on that boat. And I'm
Yep.
20 grand isn't much of a boat.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm talking about a small fishing boat,
Right.
but
Right.
but
And that
any
brings me to another good point. You just mentioned something, and we're going to get to that. There was something else I want to talk about, but so you made a point where don't buy a boat, don't buy a car.
Mhm.
And most of the people, when they buy something like that, or they buy a stereo system or a sound system, or they go to restaurants or they go to concert, how do they
Right.
pay?
With credit card, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about credit cards.
Oh boy.
So let's talk about credit cards, and this is a very important topic. And again, this is why you need to talk to an accountant, because by the way, right now we have a crisis, and I'm not trying to be negative. I'm giving you facts. You know what the crisis is? Credit cards being full crisis. The average consumer is up to here on credit cards.
Right.
So this slide that I'm going to show you is very important, because if you have a full credit card, 10,000, 15,000, 30,000,
Right.
40,000, and if you're paying 15, 16, 17%,
Oh,
me personally, I'm not an accountant, but I would not pay the extra mortgage payment extra on that. I would pay the credit cards first.
yes.
That's the next thing I want to talk about. I'm going to bring a slide up, and I want to talk about this very important thing, because a lot of people don't realize that they charge everything on credit card. Oh, they get the mileage. Yeah, I went to New York and I got 3,000 miles on my card. It doesn't matter. You are paying an average of what? 24% rate right now?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, let me Okay, let me bring another slide, and I'm going to show you something that's really eye-opening. Okay. All right. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the average consumer who's not sure, here's what I wanted to show you about is the credit card rates are right now, as you know, you can Google it. The average rates right now, they range anywhere from 20 to 24%.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have bad credit and dings on your credit, you may be even paying 27, 30%. So
Right.
imagine you went on a vacation and bought some shopping and go to Starbucks and charge on your credit cards, and your credit card is $30,000. You're paying 20% on
Right.
average on your
Right.
credit card. Look at this total revolving debt. This shows you the debt from 2017 for an average consumer to 2024. And this is very low, 1395. It's very low, but it just shows you the
Yeah.
amount of debt that you're carrying.
Yeah. And
So
if you're carrying a credit card, I mean, if you're carrying that kind of debt, there's no way
no
you're getting
way.
ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to show you something else here. Let me see here. What was I had something that I wanted to show you and read to you. Let me get to that. Oh, yeah. This one here. Remember, I told you it's a crisis right now.
Yeah.
So now, can you read this? It says delinquency rate trend.
Right.
So the credit card delinquency rates defined as accounts that are 90 days or more overdue have been below 3% in recent years. However, during the pandemic, the delinquency rate fell to a low of 1.48%, bottoming out in April of 2021. Since
Mhm.
then, the delinquency rate has more than doubled due to increased revolving debt incurred by consumers in the past 2 years, reaching 3.23% as of quarter 3 of 2024. So if you look at the chart here, in the last not 5 years, almost 10 years, we're getting to 10 years,
Mhm.
we are reaching the highest delinquency rate, which means people are behind 90 days.
Yeah, and then you hurt your credit, and then you destroy your options, and you have very little choices in terms of housing options and things like that. And
Right.
bad credit, you pay more for insurance and that sort of thing. Hey, Mike, did you see Judy had a question on there
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
on
Yeah.
the
Okay.
chat
Oh,
there?
okay. Judy. Oh, thanks for catching. I didn't get it. Sorry. Hi, Mike. Okay, let me see. I am new to your channel. My friend wanted to know if you could do a show on how to generate a copy of your house deed. She has no idea where her deed is, how she can get a copy. I'll be glad to do that. If you send me a direct message, I'll be glad to answer. But what you could do is, I'm assuming you're looking for your deed to your title of your house. One of the things you could do, depending on, go to your county assessor's office, go there
Mhm.
physically or go online, and you can get something from there. And if it's lost, I'm sure they have it. And also depends if you have a loan or not. You can talk to your lender. They technically own the house right now if you have a loan. Is that right, David?
Yeah.
Technically, they own the house, so they may have a deed to it, and you will be the beneficiary or whatever you call it. Once you
Right.
get paid off, you'll get the deed to it if you're on title.
Right.
But if you go to my channel, there's a contact in there, a referral form in there, or a contact form. Hit me up. I'll be glad to answer any questions. I don't want to answer questions without knowing all the details.
Right.
But to answer your question in general, first thing I would do is go to the county assessor's office locally. My office is in Santa Ana, 15 minutes away. I would drive down there, take your house number, your APN number, and tell them what you're looking for. They'll help you with it.
Mhm.
If you have a loan on it, I would call the bank and see if they have some kind of copy. They can send you the copy. And of course, like I said, if you have a loan, then the bank technically owns the home right now. Subject to you paying it off, then you'll own it.
Right.
I hope that answers the question.
Yep.
Thanks, Judy. Any other comments that you have, Dave, while I'm doing this to Judy?
No, I agree with you on that. I would go to the county courthouse and check with the county courthouse is what my first step would be on that. Yep.
Yeah, Nebraska is different. I know East Coast is different
Yeah.
than we have a county recorder's office, so we go there And that's why I asked what state you're in. So if you're depending on what state you're in, you know, it could be different, right? So that's why I mentioned, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, it'd be recorded down at the courthouse. The
Right.
deed would be recorded. That's
Or the
why.
courthouse. We have a county assessor's office, and we even pay our property taxes there, and you know, any questions we have. So yeah. Okay, that's good. All right. So going back to the credit cards, what we were talking about is that try not to make extra payments if you have high credit card debt, or if you have another loan, private loan, second loan, hard money loan, or if you have an auto loan that's 8%, but your house loan is 4%, then I would, me personally, I would pay off the 8% paid off, then do the extra principal payments. So this principle only works because of course, you have a house, you work hard, you have a family, enjoy the life, but don't kill yourself. So we don't want you to keep paying 20% interest. You know, I'd rather you pay off that credit card first. In fact, what I would do is, and I've done this myself many times, call the credit card company, tell them you have a difficulty paying if you have some kind of stress, you know, and they might reduce 2-3%. They may give you some leeway. So call them, or you know, transfer. And like I said, I'm not an accountant, and without knowing your case, I can't answer it. But I've done this during 2008 when we had the hard times. Agents were going through rough times. I used to change my credit card companies every 3 months. So I had 30,000, 40,000 on a credit card, 2 or 3 credit cards. Then we get a free credit card transfer, 0% for the first year. So what I did was I took the $40,000 that I had on my credit cards, transferred it to this 2 or 3 credit cards, which charged me 0% for the first 12 months. They charged me 3% interest to transfer. So on $40,000, I paid them $1,200, but I have no payments or no interest for the first 12 months, but I still paid. So that accelerated. And what happens is after the 12 months, instead of at that time, my rates were, if I remember, 17, 18%, these cards were giving me 12 or 13%. So if you have a high interest rate card, change the cards or find cards, talk to your credit card company and have them reduce it or have them give you leeway. Do anything to save. Show them you have distress. Tell them I'm working 50 hours a week, blah, blah, blah. If you have, and be genuine, of course, don't lie to them, you know. But, I've done it. I've been there.
Yeah. Isn't there a rule? Have you heard of the rule of 72, where you take 72 divided by the interest rate, and that equals the amount of time it takes for the amount to double? Have you heard of that before?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Where, so if you have let's say you have 72 divided by 9, it would be 8 years for that to double. But imagine when you're talking about 17%, 72 divided by 17, that's how quickly that amount can double.
Right.
And then I'm just I'm kind of old school, where you know, where it's like, try not to get into, you know, just kind of my rule of thumb is try not to try to pay off your credit card balance in full every month.
That's difficult.
That's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to do for folks, but if you build that habit, you know, but yeah, I mean, sometimes life gets in the way. You hit hard times, you know, you have to replace a transmission or replace a furnace or something like that. I mean, it happens. That's why it's good to have an emergency fund too. Just have some money set aside so when life happens.
Yeah. You know, I'll tell you about emergency expense. Last year, when it rained a lot, I had my whole deck replaced. Cost me about 10 grand.
Yeah.
When they did the deck, they damaged, you know, on the front, they damaged the paint, and I got lazy. I didn't want to paint it. Then I thought, let me wait till after the rain. And during the rain, this year we haven't had a lot of rain, but it did get chipped a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? Because I have a HOA in the house that I live in has a homeowners. I got a letter yesterday.
Oh, really?
I got a letter yesterday that you need to paint your house or you'll have a penalty.
Is that right? Wow.
Now I got to paint.
Yeah.
I was going to paint it anyways, but I got to paint it right now. And they say you have to paint next year because it's chipped. I mean, it's not that bad. It's got a little chip. You know, you have those maybe a chip there.
Yeah. I mean, that's just,
But it's HOA.
Yeah, that's another the beauty of
Yeah,
an
that's
HOA.
part of it,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, so does this make sense that
it
your
does.
credit card is a killer? Pay off your higher debts first, and go from there.
Right.
You know,
It's just that common sense stuff we learned from our parents and grandparents,
mhm,
that kind of old fashioned and just that way, but it works and it pays off over time.
right,
It's not a lot of fun, but
right.
it'll pay off in the long run.
In the
Then
long run, right,
then you have freedom to do what you want, and then you're
right,
not under the gun, because
exactly, right, right. Okay.
people get under the gun, and if they hit any kind of a stumbling block, then they're really
Yeah,
hurt, you know.
right,
And
right.
it's
Absolutely, yeah,
not hard to fall into that trap.
right. Yep.
It's hard to, you know, uh, yeah, it's one of those things.
Things, yeah, yeah. We'd like, if you're watching this live or even recording, let us know how many years you have left, or what other techniques you have used, or what you could do. We want to share, so we know next time we do this we can use more ideas. So share what you're going through or what you've done that has really helped you, or some of your friends might have done, and share
I've
some
heard of
ideas.
I've heard of this one, Mike, and that is, like, let's say, you get a raise where you go from, you know $2 more an hour. That extra that you're making in that raise, you apply that toward your principal, or you
Right,
apply that toward your debt, because you're already used to living on, $25 an hour. So if you get a raise to $27 an hour, apply that $2 toward, your high interest credit card debt first, and then, or your principal payment. That way you're already
right,
used to living that way.
right.
Um, so that's another thing you can do, or like you
Right.
say, get a side hustle, get a YouTube channel.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, that was a good thing you brought that topic up, because the next year we're going to talk about is, you know, what can you do to pay off your extra payments, which means you have to increase it, right? So there's several ways you can do it. So you can increase your income and apply it to the mortgage, right?
Right.
And how do you increase your income? Number one, these are just ideas, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It says switch jobs for a higher salary.
Yeah.
Job hopping often results in bigger raises. You mentioned if you
Yeah.
get a raise, but did
Yeah.
you know that if you switch jobs, you can get a bigger raise?
That's true. Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they want you, or other companies want you. And
Right.
if you tell them, hey, I'm leaving this company, they may give you that raise. So have a conversation with your boss or whatever. Say, this company is giving me this much. I'm going to leave end of March. Maybe
Right.
they'll give you a raise. So that's one way. The second thing is
Yep.
ask for a raise. If you don't want to switch jobs because it's next to
Yep.
your house, or your wife, I have a niece, the wife and husband both work at the same hospital. They don't want to switch.
Right.
So if you want to stay at the same place, ask for a raise. Hey,
Yeah.
ask and you shall receive. If you don't ask, you won't get it. That's what we do all
Yep.
day. You want to buy, you want to sell. If you don't ask, we never get, right?
Right. Exactly.
Please make a comment, because if you don't ask, you won't make a comment. Please make a comment. And then it says do a side hustle. And these are easy hustles. They say Uber, Lyft, freelance work, Etsy, Fiverr,
Yep.
Upwork. If you're a graphic designer, if you're a songwriter,
Yep.
you can do a lot of things. Earn an extra $100, $200, $300. Pay off
Right.
nasty credit cards. And if you don't have credit cards because you pay them off, or you are very frugal already, start paying extra. Either you invest in something, stocks, IRAs, right? Or
Yep.
pay off the principal. But
Yep.
we're talking about real estate, so our focus is pay off the house. Assuming you're already doing your stocks, right? Assuming you're
Yep.
working and you have a 401k and you putting 3% and the company is paying 3%. So
Yep.
we're assuming that when you get a check, it's already deducted and gone to your retirement account. So assuming that's happening,
Yep.
even $200 extra payment per month towards principal saves years of payments.
Yep.
Yeah.
Speaking of asking, Mike, we got to ask people to make sure we got to ask them to subscribe to your channel.
That's right.
And hit that like button.
I don't want to get too greedy, but yeah, hopefully, yeah.
I'll ask for you. Okay.
If you ask too much, they kick you in the butt, right? So we've been in business too long. I think it's time for us to give it up or something. So yeah. So do we want to talk more about the other thing about credit cards? Is how do you reduce your credit card? Let's say you go on a vacation every year. That's your family tradition and you want to go, Thanksgiving, whatever. One of the things you can do, and a lot of people don't do, I had my brother did not have a credit card that paid rewards and cashbacks.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So we do a lot of shopping at Costco. So we switched
Right.
to the Costco credit card.
Yep.
So every year, end of the year, we get a big check.
Right.
Right. So most of them have it, but if you don't have a credit cards, get credit cards that gives you rewards, that gives you cashbacks. Use those credit cards, but be wise, because if you end up not paying the monthly, so that's another way to increase your income, or not charge your credit cards, because those things add up.
Right. Oh yeah.
I
And
travel
Costco
not a lot,
really,
but I like to travel and all that, and those miles add up pretty good.
I have a Costco card, and they're pretty generous on some of their cash back.
For the gas now, I just got a notice today that on gas, you get 5% cash back. So we charge everything.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, everything is charged to the Costco card. Yeah, that's the one we use.
Well, I don't get to go to Costco anymore because I got a Tesla, so I don't. But my wife still charges. She still charges, But we shop at Costco and we charge everything on their credit card, so we get the rewards back.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's another suggestion that they did. What are other methods that we can use to? Here's another thing that was very important. I was talking to a client of mine. This was about 4 years ago, and he could not refinance.
Okay.
He could not change the credit cards. Everything I suggested, he could not do it. Do you know why?
Right. Why is that?
Because his FICO score was not good.
Yeah.
So this may seem a little bit off the topic, but how do you increase the amount of payment you get when you refinance? The better your FICO score, the better your rates.
Yeah.
So when I talked about, hey, call your credit card, they're going to check your FICO score. And if it's not good, one of the things you could do is talk to professionals. There's companies out there. And if you want a company, I'll refer you to some. I don't want to name them out because then they feel I'm getting kickbacks, which I don't. If I do get kickbacks, I'll disclose that to you. But there's credit card companies out there, and there's good ones and bad ones, just like everything else. So be careful, because some of them charge you up front and don't do anything. Some of them fix the score and then you pay. So be very careful. I have a legit company. It's a national company. You can check them out, and I can refer you to them. By increasing your FICO score, one, if you refinance, you'll get better terms and better rates. At the same time, if you're paying 25, 27, 28% on your credit cards versus somebody else who's paying 22 because of your bad FICO score, or you had some dings on it, use a credit card company to help you solve that issue, because it goes a long way. Even by paying $50, I'm going to go back to the calculator, David, and just show them how even a $50 makes a big difference. So I'm going to go $50 at 7%, because today's rate is 7%, right? So let's say today you buy a house at $500,000 loan.
Okay.
Let's say you bought a house, right? So I'm going to share this. Hold on. Let me bring it and share it again. Let's see, share the screen. Okay, stop sharing, because it's a new screen. Oh, there you go. Okay, can you see this? So what I did was $500,000 loan, 30-year loan, 7% interest rate. And let's say you start paying just $50 per month, right? You will save $167,000 for the life of your loan if you keep it for 30 years. But look at this. You will pay it off in almost 6 to 7 years.
Yeah. That's
$50.
amazing. That's it.
I play golf. So if I just cut one game a month, I'll save 6 years. Guess what? I'm not going to do that.
I was going to say, I don't know about that. I'm all about the extra $50. I'm like,
But that just shows you how little things make a big difference.
It adds up.
Now imagine you take it to $75, from 50 to 75. You might shave off another 2 years. So the math is very powerful here. If you can understand, as a home consumer, home buyer, if you can understand how the numbers work, and if you can apply this, it goes a long way. Very long way.
It does.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to add? Because I have a couple of last minute things we can do.
I think that pretty much sums it up for me.
Okay.
I think that's some great stuff.
Yeah. One of the things I want to mention is that, and an average homeowner is already, quote, challenged to pay the home mortgage, do the maintenance, pay the property tax, do the yard work, fix the dishwasher, fix the toilet. So when we suggest these things, make sure you don't do it and just kind of be overstressed about it. I had a friend who was doing it. He was overstressed about it, putting a lot of pressure on it, and he stopped paying his stocks. And he took his kid out of this. I think he was going to, what school was it, a private school? Once a week, and he took him off. It was costing him $100. He took him off that, and I found out, and I put him back on there.
Right.
So only do this at not cost of other things.
That's true.
Keep that in mind. We want you to save, but don't jeopardize your relationship, or don't take away from your kids, unless you guys are splurging, right? Don't take away.
Sometimes it's just little tiny tweaks in the right directions. Like maybe you starting out, you can only do $5 a month extra.
Start with 5.
And start 5 and then work up to 10, and then 10 becomes 20, and then. But if all you can do at first is just start going in the right direction, just build a little momentum, and try not to get discouraged, because sometimes folks get discouraged and they just say, well, then they throw their hands up and just do a little bit at a time. And that goes same thing with credit cards.
Right.
Hey, you got a credit card, pay a little bit more. Pay just a little bit more. Try to pay it down. It's and then try to correct the issue. Don't solve the root problem where it's like, okay, I'm eating out way too much, or I'm going to Starbucks every day, and maybe going cold turkey is just too much.
Right.
Maybe going every other day, and then going 3 times a week, and then 2 times a week, and then 1 time a week. Start going in the right direction, and then that way put you on the right path. But it's tough out there, and there's a lot of folks that are
the easiest thing you can do, the easiest way you can do this, and I did this myself. I started this 15 years ago, and I've shown it to a lot of my clients and friends. A lot of my clients become my friends, and a lot of my friends become my clients. I had one client, I sold him a house. This was like 7 years ago. At that time, it was like $600,000. That house today is $1 million, so he's very happy. It's gone up almost. So I said, okay, the first month, you're going to make an auto pay of, let's say, $3,000 mortgage. And you pay them on the first. I said, on the 10th, pay $50.
Right.
He started at $50, and it's auto. So you don't even know about it. It's gone. He's up to $400 right now every month. Automatically, it's gone.
That's awesome.
Because what happens is once you start paying $50 every month, and it's automatic, you don't even see it. You don't even feel it. Right. Then he went to 100. He went to 200. He's at 400 right now. He's going to save about 10 years.
Yeah, that's great. And you got California home prices. That's a lot of money.
He already has 400,000 of equity in it, because I sold it to him for 600,000. It's worth, I would say, 950, 960.
Yeah.
And now he's making 400 extra payments a month because he works hard and he makes good money.
Excellent.
He has a side hustle. He's a consultant. He works for a company. It's an IT company, whatever. I don't know. But with the same job, he does as a consultant in the weekend, as a business. Same thing, but he has his own clients.
Yeah.
And he makes extra money. And so $400 is nothing for him.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I know it works because I have used it myself. I've been paying my cars. I pay $30 a month, every month on my car extra, because my payment's $700, $800.
Yeah.
Every year I've been doing that. On my mortgage, I've been doing it for 15 years.
Yeah.
And you might say it's not paid up because I had to refinance. During the recession, I had to refinance. So I started my clock early.
Yeah.
And what I did was in 2016, I refinanced it at 3%.
Yeah.
And I've been paying extra. So I should be paid off in 1 or 2 more years. So I didn't have to wait 15 years. I'm going to be paid off in 12 years.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah.
So it works. I've used it myself. A lot of my clients use it. And it's just great. The system works. I think for you to do that, you have to understand the math and understand that if you buy a house for $500,000 or $1 million, assuming you have a loan for 30 years, double that. That's what the house is going to cost you.
Yeah.
And if you can get that, holy shit. Sorry to say that.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I'm going to pay another $500,000. The way to cut it is start with the $50 a month extra payment, or at least start with the bi-weekly, and then add the $50 on top of that.
I was explaining this to my son with his car. He bought a car, and I said, okay, hey, apply extra toward principal and pay down the car. And he had a little side hustle. He works construction, and then he also does side jobs on the side. And he applied that extra side hustle money toward his car payment and paid off his car. And I said, well, now that your car's paid off, keep saving that money in a savings account, and build
Right.
up money for a down payment for a house down the
Oh,
road.
nice. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't. It's unfortunate that folks don't learn about this in school, or they don't teach this finance, because finance is kind of something that's not, unless you're taught it at home. Sometimes folks just don't get it. So it's good that the information's out there.
That's one of the
you're
reasons I wanted to
sharing.
do this, because my clients say nobody told us about it. The lender didn't tell me when he bought it. So why didn't the lender tell me?
Yeah.
Why didn't my mom and dad tell me? They didn't know.
Well, I had a client that was going to pay $30,000 in points to buy down their interest rate. And I
Oh my
said,
God.
why don't you just apply it to principal? And then that way you have a
Yep.
20-year loan. And he's like, what?
Yep.
And I go, um, and when he was going to buy down his rate, it wasn't that much. And I go, you still, you're still paying that money. That's still interest.
Right. Right.
It's still interest. You're still paying it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I told him about, it applies towards principal. He was like, oh, wow. This was completely foreign to him. And he was a younger guy.
Right. Yeah.
And he was thankful, because he's like, wow, that's, it's like, oh, I didn't realize that,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's a good point,
Yeah.
so excellent.
Okay. Now we want to leave with a couple of things that you're not supposed to do. Okay. And we can talk about it as we come along. One thing is, of course, don't quote kill yourself doing this. Do it comfortably.
Yep.
Don't ruin your relationship. Don't take your kids away from your tennis class and pay that. So that's
Right.
one thing you don't do. The other thing you don't do is don't keep refinancing. I'll let you talk about that. What's the bad thing about I have a friend who refinanced 7 times in the last 10 years. So I'll let you tell him.
Every time you refinance, there's costs associated with refinancing. And then you restart the clock too. Yeah, and
Can you explain a little bit more how that works? Because the average may not know. So what are you talking about?
Well, if you paid down your loan and then you go to refinance, there's going to be costs associated. The bank's going to may want to do an appraisal and closing costs. So just the extra cost, there's a break-even point to where it might cost you $4,000 to refinance. So that's a math equation as far as how long are you going to be at the house in order to save that money to where you're break even again. I don't know if I'm doing a very good job of explaining.
No, that's right. And the other thing I was going to say is, like I said, my friend refinances. So let's say I bought a house in 2022 as an example, right? And then I refinance when the rates went down to 3%. Let's say I bought it in 2020 and the rates went down to 3% and I refinanced.
Right.
And then it went to 2.5%. I refinanced. Right. So what happens is every time you refinance, you start your 30-year clock.
Right.
So now you pay 3 years. That was a wash. Now you're going to start your clock again. So my friend who bought the house 10 years ago, he just refinanced a couple of years ago when it was like 4%. He missed the 3% mark because he's a business owner and could not refinance because bad credit.
Right.
Right. So now he's owned the house for 10 years. He refinanced last year. So guess what? He's already paid 9 years and now he's starting a 30-year clock. That means he's paying 40-year loan.
Yeah.
And what you want to avoid is don't refi too much because you're adding and adding. So every time you refinance, you just lost that principal payment that you made. And that's a no-no, and people don't understand that. And then the other critical thing that I did not mention and you should understand is that when you make that 2 things, one, check with your lender if they allow extra payments. A lot of them do, some of them don't, or some of them don't want you to pay over 10% or 20%. So check with that. And
Right.
then the very, very important thing is when you pay the extra payment, whether it's $50 or $100 a month, let them know that it goes towards the principal. This is very, very important.
That's a really important. Yes.
That's one of the key takeaway today is, well, the first one is make extra payment. The second thing is make sure you let them know in writing, because I know a lot of people do e-bills and ACH transfer.
Right.
Let them know somehow that that extra 100 or 50 or 400 goes towards your principal and not towards the payment, because that's a no-no.
Well, and here's another way, Mike. I just thought of something else, and that is if somebody has a loan with less than 20% down and they're paying private mortgage insurance, when they get to the point of, hey, I no longer have PMI or I have 20% down, they can remove that PMI, but use that PMI towards what they could have been paying toward PMI, use that towards, like, let's say it was $150 in PMI. You remove the PMI, and now you take that 150 and use that towards your principal.
Absolutely.
Because that way you're already used to paying PMI. You're not going to miss that money at all. Now it's going toward your principal.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, when I refinanced, I went from a 30-year loan down to a 15, and then I just compounded it and I paid it off in a couple of years. But I'm not a huge fan of being in debt. But owing people money really bothers me.
Right.
So I don't like to owe anybody any money. And then that makes, I'm just kind of a big believer. Big believer of living below your means. You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But when you buy a house, I mean, how many people can afford a $400,000 house all cash? I mean, or a car, $30,000 car, $50,000 car. So debt is good for you because opium. I like opium, and it's not opium you're thinking about. It's OPM, other people's money. Right. So become rich by other people's money, because when you get a loan, you're buying something. You're buying a $500,000 property with a $50,000. Right. So, and then it's appreciating.
That's right.
Right. So with 50,000, you're going to end up with $1 million property in 20 years. So you're leveraging the money, but every time you make the interest payment, it's deductible. So now you made 100,000 a year in salary and you pay 10,000 interest, it's deductible. So like I said, do the math, work the numbers, do what the rich people do, use your numbers towards you. So in some cases, debt is good. Right.
No,
but so.
Yeah, and a home is different than a car. A car is a depreciating it's depreciating. You drive it off the lot, you lost, $5 grand right off the bat. But I mean, you have to have a car in order to get around. Okay.
Right. I bought a Tesla. I could have bought a Camry, right? I mean,
right.
I could have done that, but you know what? I mean, come on, give me a break, will you?
I tend to drive my cars until the wheels fall off. But that's, it's like, as long as it gets me to where I want to go and it has air conditioning, that's a requirement.
Yeah, but life, and we're getting off the subject, we're almost done. Life is, you got to enjoy the life, and the more you work, like now I have a $800 payment. Guess what? I work an extra more just to pay the payment. So I have fun.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's fun. Yeah.
Right. Well, there was other points we could have talked about, but we're going to keep this to about an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay.
I hope you got some nuggets out of this. I hope you make use of it. If you have any questions, if you're in Nebraska area, hit up David. His information is in the description of this video. So look it up. You can ask me any questions or ask me for a referral for a lender or an expert financial planner or accountant in your area. I have a network of that because I have a good friends who are accountants and they have networks. And they are, some accountants don't know about real estate. Some do. So I have accountants that know about real estate, So we are here to help you. Hope you get some points. My channel is live every Monday at 4:30. So do join us. In fact, I'm going to be on David's channel tomorrow. David, tell us what time and maybe we can join you.
7 Central, 5 p.m. your time. And we're going to talk about the tariff situation in Canada. And then we're going to have a little bit of fun on Reddit, looking at Reddit and some of the topics that pop up on Reddit. So we'll have a little bit of fun with that. And we'll go for about an hour and just kind of chat and see where it goes and then take it from there.
Got it. Thank you all for watching. We look forward to your comments, and thanks, David, again. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed the program. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
You betcha.